Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 29. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh Steelers dropping their third straight game, putting them 1-3 on the year after a crushing fourth quarter collapse yesterday, losing to the New York Jets 24-20. Dave, this game has so much to talk about. Kenny Pickett's debut, the end, everything else in between. Frankly, I'm still struggling to even come to grips with the fact this team lost this game. They're up 20-10, fourth quarter. Everything's on their side, and I'm not quite sure how they let it slip away.
Yeah, I think the Pickett, going into the game and seeing his first action will serve as nice kind of tinsel distraction as to how the actual game unfolded there. You're right. The most concerning part about that entire game is the fact that they let a very winnable game get away from them in this, and especially in the fourth quarter in those final two drives. And you can point to the turnovers and all like that, but this came down to still the Jets having to score a couple of touchdowns in this one late, and specifically in with their only two fourth quarter possessions in this, and they managed to go 11 plays and 10 plays that wound up being their two longest drives of the game. And they tried to shoot themselves in the foot a couple of times there and give the Steelers the game, but the Steelers defense said, "Oh, no, thank you. We'd like to try to earn this," and they obviously didn't. So there's a lot of, there's obviously some positive that's in the TV tape, but there's also a lot of negative in there too. And for my take earlier in the week, my terrible take about not overly concerned about the Steelers defense at this point. It's especially without TJ Watt, it's time to be a little bit more worried about the Steelers defense.
Right. And this comes into a game that you really had to have that bordered on that must win, not only for the team avoiding a 1-3 start, but also what's ahead on the schedule. And now you're going to face the really tough part of the schedule the next month that could really put this team in a difficult position. So, blowing any lead is painful. To do that at home against a Jets team that was certainly beatable, a team you were expected to beat, and one that really put your season in a really bad position, hurts all the more. But before we get into Kenny Pickett and this defense and everything else coming from this game, let's do a quick reset on what happened prior to the game. And that includes the inactive players, with Ahkello Witherspoon being the most notable, obviously held out with that hamstring injury suffered in Week 3 against the Browns. Also inactive Mason Rudolph, Kendrick Green, Isaiah Loudermilk, Mark Robinson, Steven Sims, and David Anini. In terms of guys that were elevated, there were some promotions made on Saturday. They were veteran outside linebacker Ryan Anderson and cornerback Josh Jackson. Both guys dressed. I know Anderson saw defensive snaps. I believe Jackson only on special teams if that did not play on defense, but gave this team some extra cornerback help. And so that was the inactive list of it all. And then from an injury report standpoint, exiting the game, 4 players Mike Tomlin mentioned after the loss, all on defense: Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, Cam Sutton, and Terrell Edmonds. Edmonds in concussion protocol for the big hit he had on Michael Carter late in the first half. Hayward and Fitzpatrick finished out the game, and Sutton, that may have happened late. Not really quite sure what the status is for him, but a hamstring injury may not be the most promising sign for him to play against the Bills next Sunday.
Yeah, look, this defense doesn't need any more injuries right now, especially with it. I'm going to guess that T.J. Watt's not going to be back this for the Bills game. It'd be nice if he was. But anything's possible. I suppose he could get out there and start. What he's missed. That's 4 games now. He's missed, right?
3.
Oh,
No.
three.
Yeah, he's not eligible to come back for this.
Right. But he could resume practicing right now.
Right.
This week. So we'll see if he's able to get back out there. So obviously they won't have him for the Bills game. Would be the game after that he'd be most eligible for. He could get back out there, I think, resuming practice this week with the time that surpassed there. 0-7 now without TJ Watt. Wow. And they really had a legitimate shot of getting their first win without him on Sunday there. The rest of the injuries there, boy, you got that's a heck of a hit to knock Terrell Edmonds out of a game. That guy plays a lot of snaps there. And Sutton, obviously you're already down to Kella Witherspoon. You would hate to see them lose their smartest corner in Cameron Sutton, especially against a team that can throw the football around the field in the Buffalo Bills there. So, and I know Cameron Hayward said last night after the game or yesterday afternoon after the game that at halftime he was getting an X-ray. I imagine that was on his elbow that he talked about. And then obviously later in the game had some sort of ankle injury there. So he's going to be, pretty banged up in this week as well too. So I don't know. We'll see how the injury report plays out here and keep your fingers crossed.
Right. We'll get an update from Mike Tomlin tomorrow on Tuesday during his weekly press conference. All right, Dave, let's talk about this game. And let's start with Kenny Pickett because that's, of course, the big story here. So Mitch Trubisky, after leading, quote unquote, this offense to just a pair of 50-plus yard Chris Boswell field goals in the first half. Trubisky benched at halftime for Kenny Pickett. Mike Tomlin saying after the game he was just looking for a spark and did find one with Pickett coming in and leading this team to 2 touchdown drives, basically in 1 quarter. Granted, they were given great field position off the Minkah Fitzpatrick interception, but still touchdowns been hard to come by any method in Pittsburgh this year. And obviously there's 3 interceptions, 2 rushing touchdowns. It's a weird box score for a first game for a quarterback. The first rookie quarterback to ever have 2 rushing touchdowns in his first game. It's a very strange stat line overall. What was your take on the decision to turn to Pickett, and what was your take on Pickett's overall play?
To answer your first question, which was the decision, I'm fine with it. This team wasn't scoring any points. How many offensive touchdowns did they have up until that point?
5, I believe.
And they sans the Deontay Johnson catch in the back of the end zone, which it wasn't a touchdown. The offense really didn't have much of a spark there. So I'm fine with the decision at halftime for Tomlin to do what he did. But within that, let's all acknowledge now that the toothpaste is out of the tube at this point. And I have never seen anybody really be able to put that back in the tube. And I think Pickett gave you enough positive in the second half of that game that there's no turning back now at this point. No. When it comes to it. Now I know Mike Tomlin was asked after the game, and that's just, and I know I know Tomlin's going to catch a lot of grief probably early this week for not designating Kenny Pickett the starter immediately after that Jets game. But within that, that's Tomlin being Tomlin,
Sure.
If you haven't figured that out, I mean, I will be absolutely floored if we get into Tuesday's press conference and Tomlin does not go ahead and say that Kenny Pickett's going to be the quarterback, moving forward for this team. But I'm fine with Tomlin being Tomlin after the game like that. And I think a lot's going to be made about that early in this week. And it really shouldn't be, because Tomlin's just not going to give the media what they want right there, right after an ugly loss like that. He doesn't want to focus on that, I don't think. But
and he's not going to make that knee-jerk thought right after a loss, emotional moment. I mean, that's a very standard thing for Tomlin to not commit to something like that.
Right. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling with Tomlin not coming out and declaring Kenny Pickett the starter. Man, you haven't been paying attention to Tomlin, I don't think, for a while. But anyway, your second question was what did I think of Kenny Pickett's performance?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the best way to kind of clarify such a answer to a question would be that this was technically his fourth action in an NFL game, right? 3 preseason games and then this one. There has still been what I would feel is progression in every one of them there. And I know a lot of focus will be put on the actual 3 interceptions in this game, but let's add some context to them. The last one at the end of the game is what it was. It was a Hail Mary, and in fact, you can really wrap some positive, I think, around that one in and of itself, because I watched and charted every throw that Kenny Pickett made in college, and I never saw him throw a football 64 yards from launch point, 64 yards. And that's what that one was. And it is what it was. It was a Hail Mary.
Right.
And your guy didn't come down with it, and their guy did. So there's that. The first interception, what the hell did you draft Chase Claypool for? To contested catch a ball. Now, was the ball, underthrown to some degree? Yeah, but I mean, and you go back and you look at that, different angles of that. If Chase Claypool comes down with that, what are we talking about here? Or if it doesn't get intercepted, it's a long incompletion there. And then obviously, I think the other one. Towards the end of the game that obviously set up the Jets, score there. He says he was trying to throw it. We're only, more so of a throwaway where only his guy can get it or throw it away. Well, that's essentially what that ball was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pat Fryermuth's got both hands on that football. If Fryermuth comes down with that pass, does anybody even bat an eye about the decision or the ball placement on that? Because quite honestly, the only way Fryermuth is going to catch that ball is if it's over his head, I think. But obviously it clanked off of Fryermuth's hands, and you can say, well, he should have, bad decision, just should have thrown it away completely. Okay, if you want to give that as the biggest negative of any of the throws there, I'm fine with it. If you want to say, Dave, you're out of your mind, he just should not have thrown that football. Okay, I'll be good with that. But it did hit his guy in the hands, and if he comes down with it, then I'm not even sure that we're talking about anything there. There were several very impressive throws in this game. Back shoulder to George Pickens, really kind of twice. In this one, and really the biggest throw of the game that's going to kind of, that hopefully goes to the forefront here was that pressure throw once again, which almost looked like a carbon copy of
the Jacksonville game,
of the game against the Jaguars there, with him standing in the pocket, taking a hit and hitting Fryermuth in the middle of the field. In my opinion, that is the biggest, that throw maybe is the biggest thing that needs to be talked about Kenny Pickett's performance. And then, obviously the effort on the two rushing touchdowns goes without saying there. But small sample size, obviously here, and 3 of those throws ended up in the hands of the other team there. But the intended air yards, the completed air yards, the manner in which some of those throws were completed. And once again, Kenny, once he entered the game, the moment did not seem too big with him, as we talked about was the case in those first 3 games. So I guess, long story short, I'm looking at this as preseason game number 4. Okay.
Okay.
And I came away when laying in bed thinking about this last night, I came away thinking, have I seen progress in Kenny Pickett in all 4 of these preseason games, which obviously is 3-1, but he played about the same amount of snaps he would have played in a 4 preseason game, roughly, I guess. But anyway, and I saw him push the football. What was one of the things I talked about coming out of the preseason in those 3 preseason games? I wanted to see him push the football down the field a little bit more. He did that overall. And, I think, overall, I'm happy with where he's at right now. Now, look, is he going to have his growing pains as this thing goes on? Yeah, I think so. But I think putting just that game in the vacuum for the 13 pass attempts, or how many pass attempts?
13.
Yeah, I was fine with the performance. I think Steeler fans should be kind of excited with what they saw.
The more I've thought about it, right after the game ended, I went, did Pickett play a great game? How do I feel about that?
That was a long response I just gave you, by the way.
It was. Yeah. That's all good, though. My thought was I wasn't quite sure where I was at on Pickett's performance. Obviously, there was some good, but did the bad outweigh the good? How do you weigh it all? The more that I've thought about it, the more that I've kind of gone back through the game a little bit and wrote about it, I was pretty encouraged by what Pickett did. And 3 interceptions, obviously, not what you're looking for. The Hail Mary, put that one aside. The first one to Claypool, as you said, not the best throw that Pickett could have made, but Claypool loses out on a jump ball situation to a 5'8" safety. I mean, come on. I mean, as you said, what did you draft Chase Claypool for other than to win in moments like that? And, tips off his hands and it gets picked by Jordan Whitehead. Kind of, not a bad read, not the best throw, but a play receiver of Claypool's, size and caliber needs to be able to make the 1 to Freiermuth. I probably will give less grace to Pickett than you do. I just think that's a situation where you don't want to take that risk. And it felt like he was drifting in the pocket some and everything just kind of got messy. Because wasn't that the first play? There was that toss to Jaylen Warren, and I think the toss wasn't great, and it just kind of started getting a little hairy there. But overall, as you talked about, the name of the game for a quarterback is to produce points. And with Trubisky, it was not happening. I think that Trubisky, the stats don't necessarily paint a fully accurate story of his play. I thought he was a bit better than what the numbers suggest. Obviously, the interception, not going to be his fault. The throw to Deontay was a great throw, just, by an inch, basically prevented that from being a touchdown. So I can probably understand Trubisky's frustration for being benched in that game, but his pocket presence started to really wane at the end of that game and ran himself into trouble. But to go back to Pickett, just producing points. That's the name of the game. This offense has been searching for that all year, and Pickett finally did that. And what goes hand in hand with that is winning on possession downs, Dave. I've talked about as much as anybody, Pittsburgh struggles on 3rd down in those weighty moments, to use a Tomlin's phrase. First half with Trubisky, they're 1 of 6 on 3rd down. Pickett comes in, they're 5 of 6 on 3rd down, 1 of 1 on 4th down in that game. They moved the ball on possession downs. Pickett had a big hand in that. To me, that's the thing I'm looking most optimistically towards, to see this offense gain some traction on 3rd down, because it's been so hard to find that through the first, 3 games and a half this year.
Yeah, look, and like I said, if somebody wants to push back on that on that second interception, I'm fine. But once again, I thought that the ball hit Freiermuth in the hands, and if he comes down with it, is anybody really even talking about that throw?
Yeah, but is it? I mean, he's falling back in the pocket, I think, on that play, making a tough throw on the sideline when you're up 20-10. It's a situation where is the risk worth the reward of whatever yardage, gain that would have been on that play? I don't know how many yards it would have been. Not a lot overall. Probably not the right move in that moment is the thought.
Okay. But here's the thing. When you look at, I had my drive sheet pulled up here. With what they were with what they were doing on that actual drive, I'm trying to think of the plays that leading up to it there.
Well, again, wasn't the play before they tossed to Warren that
right. So I mean, you had you come out even throwing the football on the drive, though. I mean, that shows a lot of confidence,
Sure.
In him, because they got the football at 7:31 there. There was that pass over there to the short right to Deontay Johnson. Turn around. I think the pass, another short pass to the right for 6 yards to Deontay. And then Kenny does a good job or scrambles out of the pocket. On the 1st and 10 play, they ran up the gut on second down with Najee Harris. The next one, I think, was the back, one of the back shoulders down the left hand side to George Pickens there, and then you had the kind of the aborted play on, if anything, more emphasis, and maybe that'll happen as the week. It was a very bad pitch to Warren, and I know Warren talked about his angle and all like that, and tried to take more of the blame on himself and all like that. But I mean, you're already telling the kid that it's okay to throw in a late game situation where you kill, if you put a drive together there and move the football, you can potentially end the game with a 6-minute drive there that comes away with points. But I overall, once again, if that throw goes over Freiermuth's head, is anybody batting an eye at it? Probably not. I mean, but it did hit him in the hands, and I'm not totally angry at him for the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to being aggressive and throwing there. I think that was the right decision, but that play seemed a little broken. I know Pickett was kind of drifting. There was some pressure. It's probably just one where you just say, let's throw it away. No one's even going to come close to catching this one. Fight another down, kind of the mentality there. But again, that aside, I was overall encouraged. He certainly did provide a spark. The energy was different. And as you said, there's going to be struggles and bad days ahead. I don't want to. What fans will have to get used to is not being overly reactionary to one moment or one play or
Good
one
luck
situation,
with that.
which I know is going to fall on deaf ears. But you want to look at the season and in totality, there's going to be ups and downs. That's natural for a rookie overall. But what Pickett did on possession downs is what this team's been searching for all year. And to me, I really thought that was a positive step for him, of course, and for this offense.
Move over, Tom Brady. There's a new quarterback sneak king. His name is Kenny Pickett. No. Look, I mean, the effort on a lot of those runs, we got to see some of the mobility there with him take off over on the right side there. That's one thing Mike Tomlin talked a lot about during leading up into the pre-draft process was mobility, right? So, yeah, look, if you just look at the box score only on this, it obviously would be kind of a head scratcher there. But I'm choosing to look at this as preseason game number 4. Once again, and once again, I thought some of the throws that he made in this game, along with the contextualization of the actual tape, marrying the tape to the actual interceptions, to kind of the spark to the conversion downs, like you talked about there. I mean, I thought it was fine. I think he's in a good place. And once again, the poise that he had when he came into the game. And I really think the best, once again, I don't know how much it'll get talked about as the week goes on. I mean, him standing in that pocket and taking that shot and delivering that football. I mean, almost identical carbon copy of what happened in that Jacksonville preseason game. And then I was shocked he threw the football that far on, to be honest with you, on that Hail Mary at the end of the game. I dare anybody to show me a pit throw that from release point to 63 yards down the field. I don't remember seeing one that far there. So overall, I mean, I'd give him, I guess, a A-, B+ for what he did in that game.
To go back to the decision, I think I was maybe a little bit surprised to see Tomlin make that switch mid-game. That wasn't really my expectation. Again, I think Trubisky was at least a bit better than what the box score would indicate. My thought was that, Pickett would, whenever he did start, it would be that would be known before the week began to kind of have him more time to prepare, more reps, and those obvious things. But, I'm not mad at Tomlin for necessarily making the change. The offense was doing nothing, and it had been doing nothing. And I think maybe Tomlin felt not that he probably wouldn't have called this a must win, but the importance of this win and the need to try to get some points and get to 2-2 on the year with the tough part of the schedule ahead. So I think maybe that drove that decision to turn to Kenny Pickett. But as you said, Pickett played, I think, reasonably well, and there really is no going back now.
Oh yeah. I don't see how you can go back and from this point now. And I don't fault. We said it probably happened organically at some point, and that's organic enough.
Right. Do you feel bad for Trubisky? I guess is the phrase that I've seen some people say. Do you hold that feeling?
I mean, what does that even mean?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen the comment of, do you feel that, I guess the thought would be, is Trubisky kind of getting a raw deal? Has he not been given enough time? Was he as bad to warrant being benched? Whatever, I guess, however you would want to interpret it.
We knew it was going to happen at some point this season. I thought it'd be more around the line of near the bye week there. I obviously didn't think it was going to happen with him starting off of what ended up being a long week here. But I mean, at any point moving forward, it's had to enter the mind of anybody, that has any sense that this could have happened,
Right. I don't think I necessarily feel bad for Trubisky. I mean, your job is to put points on the board, and this offense obviously had not. So, I mean, that's a decision that felt inevitable, maybe just a little bit sooner than later than I expected. I don't think Trubisky feels like his play warranted being benched, just based on his post-game comments yesterday. Obviously, it's an emotional situation. He knows that this was a big opportunity for him this year, and it's not playing out the way that he had hoped for. But I got the sense he didn't feel like he should have been taken out of that game.
He definitely had a you only live once kind of edge to his play early in that game, because there was I think 6 or 7 of his attempts flew more than 16 yards down the field. You're not going to be able to accuse Mitch Trubisky of not trying to push the football down the field in the first 3 or what would it be? Yeah, 3 and 3.5 games that he appeared in. In fact, he probably leads the league in deep pass attempts at this point. The problem, and I wrote about this during the preseason, he's just not, completion percentage when it comes to him throwing the football down the field was just not there. And I think what became evident as his starts and his play with the Steelers progressed was, he's not that stand in the pocket, step up into the pocket kind of guy. He will leak very easily under first sign of color on the other side there. And I mean, really, he is what he was in his time at Chicago, to be quite honest with you. And I mean, this is football, and he knows it. And to say that do I feel sorry for him or anything like that? I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, you hate to see any guy kind of go through that, but it's not like the writing wasn't on the wall with this, and it would have really taken him having this team, with a few more wins, at this point, obviously stronger play and putting points on the board the first half of the game. So, I mean, I kind of look at it as it is what it is at this point. Now, look, I said right after they signed him that the likelihood this guy would be one and done was a high probability. And I got a lot of pushback from that, but you're not going to pay this guy $8 million next season just to hold a clipboard and help Kenny Pickett out,
Right. Yeah, he'll have to be released then. There's no trade value there. So I guess I'm betting Trubisky's just thinking, man, if Deontay just didn't have that one skim through his hands for a pick, and if he's able to get that, left toe, just another inch back to stay in bounds with that touchdown, I probably don't get benched in that game.
Maybe. For sure. I mean, that was so close. That was
a good throw. That was a really good throw.
It really was a good throw. Yeah. Look, but once again, he, for his time in that first half of the game, a lot of his balls were pushed down the football field. Now he did throw a little bit more to the middle of the field in a couple of those and all, but and like Tomlin said, I believe Tom, they were looking for a spark there, and you knew there was going to be synergy in the stadium once Kenny Pickett entered the game, and there obviously was. And props to Mike Tomlin for right away going for it on that fourth down, and the quarterback sneak. I mean, and all like that. And I mean, there was it did seem to kind of uplift not only the offense but the defense a little bit as well too. Once Pickett came in, and now had Pickett came in and if the tape wasn't there and he played just god awful, then even at that point, I'm not sure you get the ability to put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. But I think they got what they were hoping for out of Pickett in making that change, and I think he now move forward with the idea that he can only improve and get better.
I think had Pickett not played well in the second half of that game yesterday, you could have gone back to Trubisky. It would have been a little awkward potentially, but I think you could have put that toothpaste back in the tube. But assuming
it really would have had to been awful, I think.
Fair. But assuming that Pickett is named the starter for the Bills game, that's the line you can't go back from whenever he's named the starter going into a week. And I think that's a line that's going to happen, that Pickett will be named the starter for the Bills game next Sunday, and then you're not going to go back there barring injury or maybe something just crazy happening. But to your point of Pickett coming in, bringing energy, bringing points in production, which brought more energy, things going well, all leads me back to the question of how the heck did this team lose this game? Everything was on their side after the third quarter, after that touchdown to start early in the fourth quarter. Everything was on their side: the energy, the defense, the offense. You're up 20-10 at home against the Jets, who are not a particularly good team. How does this team blow that lead?
I think you can boil it all the way down to those last two drives, and that's a captain obvious because they scored on both those drives there. But the Jets also tried to give them this game several times within those final two drives. They had a couple penalties. They were in what? They were in a and Wormley had a tackle for loss in one of those. At one point there, the Jets faced a 2nd and 10 from the Steelers 42 with 11:16 left in the game. Then Wormley had that tackle for loss. It was 3rd and 13. They had him in that situation. Wilson scrambled on that play for 6. They had him in a 4th and 7 situation. You got to get off the field in that situation. They didn't. Wilson made a nice play to I think that was the one that he was that the conversion down low.
No, that was middle of the field. Corey Davis on Millette.
Okay. But I mean, once again, they had several chances to get off the field, and the defense said no thank you at all.
Let me read off. I put this together late last night. All the situations the Jets were in late in this game and the results of those situations. These are on the final two drives, basically the fourth quarter the Jets had. 3rd and 6, they gained 35. 4th and 7, they gained 22. 3rd and goal from the 5-yard touchdown. Final drive. 3rd and 6, Jets gain 8. 1st and 20, Jets gain 11. Get back on schedule. Get back in manageable situation. 2nd and 9, they gain 17. I mean, if you win any of those one plays I just talked about, get a stop, get an incompletion, get a big play, that game's over. Pittsburgh wins. And routinely could not make one stop. I mean, for all the warts this offense has, and we talk about whatever problems they have, this defense needs more attention because they're not playing well. They're regressing. They're falling back. Yes, there are injuries, et cetera, but this defense has to play better. They were certainly in a position to win this game, even with a Pickett turnover. Still not an excuse for me to allow 10, 11 play drives of 60-plus yards for touchdowns. This defense was in every manageable situation to win this game, to close this game out, and they did not.
Yeah, even on down to that final touchdown too. Miles Jack comes crashing through and hits low and doesn't get the success there, right?
Right. I mean, because it went from don't allow the Jets to tie it to, oh my God, are the Jets going to win it, to the Jets are going to win it. They're in the end zone. And even on that last play, the touchdown that Breece Hall had, Miles Jack comes in free. And that's a tough play on the goal line. I get that, but it's not often you get a free shot in that moment. Usually, you don't get that push because everything's just so bogged down, all these bodies together. No one's coming in free. Jack has a free shot. I thought Jack played well overall in this game, especially in coverage, but just another missed opportunity in that game to get a stop, and who knows what happens from there. Well,
here's the thing. I think they, I won't say easily, but I think they get the play that they need in those in the final those final two series if TJ Watt plays in that game. Sure. The funny thing is you go back through this and it'll be interesting to see some of the end zone views on some of this. That defense got a lot of pressure throughout the day.
But they only got one sack.
Right, but they couldn't close the deal. I mean, Alex Highsmith probably could have had 3 or 4 sacks in that game. He had one. There were other instances where Wilson did a good job of turning negative into that backwards. How did that not get called intentional grounding?
Yeah, I don't even know.
But Wilson made a few plays on top of it there, but for the amount of pressure that this defense had, for them to come away with just a 1 sack is very disappointing. And for as not as impressive as the Jets had run the football at points during the game, those linebackers are getting sucked way up on some play action, and that. There was just way too many middle of the field, wide open throws in this game and kind of money type situations as well. And then, once they found out where Arthur Millette was in the final 2 drives, they really kind of took advantage of that as well, too. But why did the Steelers lose this game? The defense in the final 2 drives. That if not for Kenny Pickett, that would be the main headlines all over this thing right now.
Right, I'm with you. In middle of the field stuff's been an issue for this defense all year. Even the Bengals were doing that back in week 1 with Chase and Higgins over the middle of the field, play action being pretty effective overall. But that was my concern in this game, was Millette having to play more than just his typical early down, run down, quote unquote situations, and really, they just, as you said, they found where 35 was at. They went after him. They had a completion to Garrett Wilson, that 4th down to Corey Davis I mentioned earlier. That was against Millette as well. And Pittsburgh got into trouble where they really kind of ran out of their ability to be versatile. When you lose Witherspoon coming into that game, that keeps Cam Sutton on the outside. He basically played outside cornerback essentially the entire game. Couldn't move him to the slot in any sort of sub-packet situations. Then you lose Terrell Edmonds. Trey Norwood comes in. Now, Norwood can't be a dime defender. On those last 2 drives, Pittsburgh was in their nickel defense. They were not in dime because they could not be in dime. They ran out of people to play their dime package with. And so now they're in passing situations with 2 inside linebackers on the field. They're not successful in those moments. Millette's having to play every down as a slot corner. They're picking on him. So those are the reasons, I think, why the defense struggled the way that it did. They couldn't play dime. Millette's out there when he shouldn't be. He's not a coverage guy, but it's still frustrating to allow 2 lengthy drives for touchdowns in the final 10 minutes or so with so many chances to get off the field.
Yeah. And once again, you'll be able to circle 4 or 5 plays in those final 2 drives, and once again, the Jets did their best to try to back them out of the situation. And they would really be talking to themselves after the game for having some of those penalties and putting themselves in negative down and distance situations there. And the Steelers just kept letting them off the hook there.
And while Pittsburgh got pressure in the first half, they didn't necessarily get sacks. Where's the pressure in the 4th quarter? I charted it. I had 2 plays of pressure, and it was kind of quote unquote maybe lower quality pressure that didn't directly impact throws. in that fourth quarter, in a situation where it's not even about, oh, they might run the ball, we have to respect the run, we have to earn the right to pass rush. No, they have to throw the football, and you had zero pass rush. There was no answer to the chips the Jets were doing, which Pittsburgh knew they were going to do. They took that game plan that the Jets did against Cleveland to play the Browns in week 3 with the double wings and the chips on the edges and stuff like that. So where is the pressure there? It was non-existent late. And listen, I love Cam Hayward. I'm the biggest Cam Hayward fan and supporter that you're going to see. I know he's playing through some stuff right now. You get extra attention because Watt's out, but last 3 games, no quarterback hits, no sacks, 1 pass deflection, 1 tackle for loss. Need more from Cam Hayward. The stars have to play like stars. Mink is playing out of his freaking mind right now to try to will this team to victory. Hayward's got to bring his game to a new level because they need a guy like him to make some of those big, weighty plays.
I agree. And, one of my keys to the game was need a high performance Cam. And they did, that didn't happen. They didn't. Well, you look at several of the keys to the game that I was hoping for that this team would have, and they obviously didn't get them. They didn't get a lot of yak in this game either, and that's something. I think I had them at 65 yards after the catch in this game. And
is that the number? Okay, that beats the season number, right?
Yeah, but I was kind of envisioning around 100 or so. When it comes to that, and I think Pickens had a good chunk of that, and Freiermuth as well too. So there are several things, and obviously Cam Hayward. You would think that after those last couple of games, of not being that effective, that you were due for a little bit better game this time, and it didn't happen.
Right, and I know again he's had the injuries and. There's the extra attention that you're getting with TJ Watt being out and Malik Reed's not doing. I mean, he drew a couple of holding calls. He's probably a bit better than what the box score indicated, but still, I mean, whenever the Jets are down, they come into that game down 3 tackles. They lose their other rookie tackle, Max Mitchell, in this game. They're kicking a guard up the tackle and Vera Tucker, and you just can't get pressure related. They actually didn't blitz at all in the fourth quarter, which you can probably debate that one. There should have been some sort of different look or different blitz, something offered to try to get some additional pressure. They just ran 4-man rushes with a couple of games and twists. So that might be something to comment on for the coaching staff and the game plan and the play calling. But regardless, I mean, just no pressure late in that game where you should have been getting a ton of it.
I agree. Look, the offense did enough to win this game overall, and the defense let it get away.
Right. Again, the Pickett interception to me, the one to Freiermuth, not a play he should have made. But even still, it's not like that occurred deep in Pittsburgh territory. That was in Jets territory. And yes, you would love to get a field goal there, but Pittsburgh's defense had plenty of grass to defend there, and they just simply could not.
Right. Other key points in this game. I thought the offensive line started off okay, and then kind of went down from there. There was one sequence there where in the first half, I think with around 3 minutes left, Dan Moore Jr. gets a false start, decides that's not good enough, and then gives up a sack, I think, to Carl Lawson on the very next play there. Boy, the penalties in the first half alone, I think 4 of the offensive linemen had penalties in the first half there of some way, shape, or form. Overall, they were able to run the football at points in this game, and what should be deemed as good enough. This is an offense, though, for everything, and Pickett included here. This is an offense now that is the only offense or only team in the NFL that is yet to register either a 20-yard run or a 40-yard pass play. Mm. Explosive plays win games, along with turnovers. And I think this team now has 10 explosive plays on offense after 4 games. I mean, that's a good reason why you're 1-3 at this point. Offensively, like I said, I think with the offensive line, I think it started off okay, but it deteriorated as things went on.
For sure. I mean, the Bills get 10 explosive plays a game, and that's your upcoming opponent here. I think they were in third and manageable a lot less in this game, at least in the first half, than what they had been before. I mean, they had an early 3rd and 5 that was, I think, incomplete that they missed out on. But yeah, you had the false start, legal hands to the face on a core for ineligible man downfield on James Daniels. They're up to 4 of those on the year. They had one in the second half too. The RPOs are too slow to develop.
Yeah, and they did run a couple RPOs, a couple more RPOs in this game, especially early here.
And that's not on Daniels. It's not his fault. I mean, he's run blocking. He has to act like it's a run play.
Going back to the throw that sticks out of my mind about Trubisky, there was that one to Warren over there on the side. I think was that a 3rd down play?
Yes. Behind him that he caught.
That's another instance, and we've seen that a handful of times this year when Trubisky goes out to his right side. Get the football out. That ball's got to be thrown a lot earlier than that, and then when he did throw it behind him. And had he got that ball out quicker, I think maybe in that situation, I know people say throwing short of the chains. If there's anything that he's not been doing on 3rd downs in situations this year that we talked about was throwing short of the chains. I'm fine with a quarterback throwing occasionally to the short of the chains, especially with a guy on the move and a running back in that case in particular, because you're going to have a pretty good chance to get a first down in this situation there. But he did not get the football out in that situation. And when he did, the throw was behind Jaylen Warren. He was tackled short of the chains in that situation there. But, as you mentioned, you can boil this thing all the way back down again to the final 2 drives, and really the final drive overall. They were defensively for the Steelers. There's more than enough opportunities to get off the field here. And when's the last time this team's given up a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter? Do you have that?
The last one came in 2012 to the Raiders. Those old games against the Raiders that you hated so much, but the way that I framed the stat is the last time the Steelers blew a 10-point lead in which they went up 10 points during the 4th quarter. That has not happened since November of 2000 against the Eagles. In that Raiders game, they were up 10 points going into the 4th quarter. The Raiders, I think, scored quickly in the 4th quarter and made it closer from there. But in 2000, last time Pittsburgh was up 10 points and then blew the lead.
Something else I wanted to talk about here.
Sure.
That it didn't hit me until the rewatch. I must have been looking down. What's up with Gunnar Olszewski?
Yeah, Trubisky might not be the only guy to lose his job. It might be Trubisky and Olszewski being on the chopping block here. You get another, and that was right before Pickett came in, fumbling that punt. Thank God for James Pierre jumping on that football. I mean, he's not really doing a whole lot in terms of explosive plays. Steven Sims is there. Calvin Austin potentially coming back. I don't know how much time is left for Gunnar.
I mean, he doesn't give you much on offense. He did have a nice block on that, I don't know, what was it, kind of pin and pull or whatnot? Or
crack toss. I think it was crack toss.
Crack toss over there on that right side there. I mean, what does he give you as a wide receiver? And you specifically signed this guy because of his return abilities and gave him the money. You didn't sign him because of you were impressed with his, what did he have, 9 career receptions heading into this season. You signed him because of his return abilities, and you haven't gotten that out of and not only the fumble there, he let that one bounce. That one, right. I think, in the first half, bounce at go run at the very minimum, go run up and fair catch that. I think he cost him 12 yards or something like that in that situation. It's one of those situations where you got to have a talk, a 2 Bobs talk with him now and say, what exactly do you do here? And look, at some point here in these coming weeks, this team's going to get Calvin Austin, the 3rd back. He might even start practicing this week, and you open up the You obviously have the 3 week
21 day window,
the 21 day 3 week window once he begins practicing there. Who and assuming this team only dresses 5 wide receivers, who loses the helmet? I tell you, it's not. People say, "Oh, Miles Boykin is easier." Miles Boykin, they're not going to take that helmet away from Miles Boykin with what that guy does on special teams there. So it's not going to be Deontay. It's not going to be George Pickens. It's not Miles Boykin. That leaves 2 players left to get their helmets taken away from them. One's Chase Claypool and the other's Gunnar Olszewski. Now, you tell me what you saw out of Calvin Austin, in ability to maybe return some punts and kickoffs, and be twofold and playing in the slot.
Yeah, they could certainly look for him to get on the field, but even in the interim, because he may not be ready to get a helmet for the Bills game, Steven Sims can do kicks and punts and do their motion. Because, Gunner's not been used as a receiver. I don't think he has a reception all season. It's been just motion stuff and jet runs, and Steven Sims can and has done that effectively. So I would look towards Sims being the guy in week 5 and kind of take it from there. But if there's an odd man out, it's going to be certainly Gunner.
What good is that guy on the 53? He's going to slowly, if he gets pulled and made inactive, talking about Gunner, he goes down there to the bottom with Kendrick Green at that point, where he becomes super expendable.
Right. And that's a great point you made about him letting that punt go. And I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know where he was set up or something like that, but Pittsburgh should have had great field position there. Let me try to get the circumstance if I can find that. Yeah, they're punting from their own 18-yard line. You're thinking, man, Pittsburgh's going to be in really good territory. And it was a 59-yard punt with that bounce and roll. Pittsburgh starts at their 23, and the first play picked off by LaMarcus Joyner. And so that puts them in field goal range. You get a field goal out of that. Jets go up 3-0 early. So there's so much happening there from a field position standpoint where you should come out aces and you're backed up, throw a pick, and allow 3 points.
And what if he had put that football on the ground? Well, and the Jets have recovered that. Oh,
yeah. Then you cut today probably. Kenny Pickett's ready to go out in the field. You're all excited. The crowd's going crazy, and then Gunner fumbles, and again, kudos to Pierre. So second fumble / muff punt of the year. Yeah, I could certainly see Steven Sims being the guy in week 5.
Look, if you're gonna send a message and all, it probably starts there. Here's something else. Okay, you promoted Ryan Anderson from the practice squad there, and we talked about getting pressure but not getting to the quarterback, and specifically not getting probably enough pressure in the second half there. You keep calling these guys up. Ryan Anderson played 5 snaps in this game.
Right.
And look, I understand they did what they did with Leal once again. And I'll tell you who's not going to be inactive in the coming weeks, and that's DeMarvin Leal. He's playing the progress he's made early season here for what he's been asked to do is pretty good. Once this guy gets stronger, and actually starts knowing what he's doing out there a little bit more, they might have them something with DeMarvin Leal based on the early results there. But you had Jameer Jones play 5 snaps and Ryan Anderson play 5 snaps in this game. If you don't have any more confidence in those kids to do that, you might need to look elsewhere.
And they don't have a lot of confidence. They play in a lot of the 3 inside linebacker packages. Robert Spillane rushed off the edge as much as Jameer Jones or Ryan Anderson did in this game. And we'll see what Anini ever does whenever they trust him enough to play, I suppose. But yeah, they're limiting the snap count to everybody not named Alex Highsmith because they just don't have a lot of trust in those guys to get the job done. One other guy to talk about, you talk about Gunner, what's his status going forward? How about Presley Harvin? I just didn't feel like we're seeing good enough from him. The first punt was fine, 36 yards to the Jets 9. But then after that, from his own 34, another 36-yard punt. And then he did have a 51-yarder. That was a good punt. But then 4th and 25 from his own 19, 35-yard punt, puts the Jets at their own 46. So, inconsistency continues for Harvin, and the highs have not even been all that high. It's not like he has 70-yard punts that are incredible versus a 40-yarder. It's 35-yard punt versus a 53-yarder that's decent, but pretty typical if you watch the NFL on a given weekend. Harvin needs to do more, especially for this offense where winning field position is going to be really important to the overall scope of winning.
Look, I agree. And if you talk bad about him on Twitter, you get people pushing back, say, well, look what he went through last year with his father and all like that. You're not being compassionate enough. Look, that was last year. I mean, I think it's absolutely sucks what happened to him and his father and all like that. But they might have let the wrong punter get away, Alex. And I said that on a show not too long ago, right? With what the heck's going on with Corliss Waitman over there in Denver? I thought, and you highlighted the one that really aggravated me the most going back looking at the TV tape. There's zero pressure whatsoever on that one when the Steelers are kind of backed up there. And it just was the golden opportunity for him to boom one out of the Steelers' own end. And it was, 30-something yards?
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, I mean, that's just – how does that happen? Here's what I would do. You would already have Jordan Berry in town, right, on the practice squad at this point. Right. I would make that as long as you can hold that extra practice squad position, which might not be very long. I'd have an open competition. I'd go out to that practice field. If I'm Danny Smith, I'd say this is an open competition right now for this punting job, at least for a week or two, if you could get away with it with and the inactive list and all. And I think you probably could. I mean, is his hip causing this?
Yeah, I was going to mention. I know he had the hip injury, but he practiced full, and a lot of guys are playing hurt. I mean, I get that. But eventually, at some point, there's no excuses. Do the job. You're out there. If you're not healthy enough to do the job, then don't play. But You can't make excuse after excuse for the guy that practiced all week in full. I mean, it's punter, so I don't know how much you're really doing. But he was out there. He was healthy enough to play. You got to do the job.
Look, Presley Harvin did not lose this game for the Steelers, and Gunnar Olszewski did not lose this game for the Steelers. But, some of this stuff easily sticks out when you start going back through it and then matching up the play-by-play and that kind of stuff there for sure. So, I think you got to look at your punter situation. You got to look at your returner situation. Oh, what else is there? I didn't think Spillane had an overly great game there.
Why is he the dime linebacker? What is his use? What is his role? I mean, he's getting cooked by Tyler Conklin.
Right. At this point now, especially with against the run, I mean, Spillane's not even making good decisions, choosing to go under instead of over, maybe in some situations there. Gap integrity hasn't been great by any of them, really, the last couple of games. You could point to, I think, all three of those guys. I think at some point, and it's not like Spillane's showing up in the special teams box score all that much. At some point, I think you got to make a decision here in the coming weeks of start getting Mark Robinson some snaps. He can obviously help you out on special teams, and I think he could get him out there in some of the, if you're going to have three off the ball linebackers on the field for certain situations until Watt gets back. I think you can get him out there as well too. So that's another one that sitting at 1-3 right now, I think you seriously have to consider.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's less likely to occur because do they trust him enough? They do like Spillane for reasons that aren't always entirely clear to me. But from a communication standpoint, assignment standpoint, I think they're going to keep rolling with Spillane. But got to use Miles Jack more in those dime situations. He's your best coverage linebacker. He's not fantastic, but he's certainly the best guy that Pittsburgh has and an upgrade over Spillane. So this rotation just does not make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. And once again, Spillane's not one of the main reasons why this team lost, but you
add everything up. All these small things become pretty big things.
Right.
That's where I'm at overall. But again, I think Pittsburgh limited defensively in those last two drives. I'm not making excuses for them. They had plenty of chances to get off the field. But whenever you're down Edmonds and Norwood's fixed and Sutton's on the outside, Millett's forced to play action. Millett is he can't cover. And downhill, he can make plays. He had, a nice tackle on Garrett Wilson on third down, another breakup later in the game. But anything where he's got to open his hips, he's in big trouble.
I want to mention one other thing. I put this on Twitter last night before we go back to really actually kind of talking more about the game here. This team feels like they need like 5 first-round draft picks in 2023. And coming out of this game particularly, now that's a bit of an overreaction, but I got so frustrated going through the TV tape and the couple of times that I did after that game, and I'll get even more frustrated when the all-22 drops, I'm sure, especially when it comes to the defensive side of football. Look, Spillane's not going to be there or shouldn't be there in 2023, right?
I'm not going to miss him that much if he isn't. I mean, if he's just a pure special teamer, then
are you going to miss Devin Bush?
No, I mean, he's played better. I mean, he's improved.
He has, but are you going to miss him?
No.
Millette?
No, I mean, I get what they're doing with him in terms of the run defense, and he does bring that value. There's no question about that, but, I mean, you can't cover.
Wormley?
I think Wormley's played well. I think he's a really good technician. He's making some plays yesterday. So, I mean, I would be good with bringing him back, especially because Ogunjobi might go, Alualu's going to retire, Hayward another year older. I'd be in favor of bringing Wormley back. And
I was going to mention Tyson Alualu as a name on that list.
Retiring.
Which one of your outside corners opposite Cameron Sutton is going to step up? Terrell Edmonds?
No, not going to miss. I mean, there's value to Edmonds that I think some people don't necessarily realize in terms of just the volume of snaps in which he plays. But this guy was a free agent right before the draft for a reason. Now Cam Sutton, I mean, he's a free agent after this year.
Okay. Yeah, true.
So I think that's a guy you do want to bring back.
You probably do. What a play by him on that interception. That's something we
have really good hands. That catch he had against the Bengals and that pick yesterday, and those are wide receiver like plays that he's making.
I mean, just the decision to come off of this guy and be able to read that as well too. I mean, the throw the actual catch out. The fact that he was able, and I talked about, I was worried about that over. Especially to that side. That was a very, and that play could not come at a more opportune time. Then that was it. That was a huge play in that game down in their own end and all like that. And that ended up producing 3 points.
Right. And took points off the board for the Jets potentially. Right. So big swing there.
It ended up being a bigger swing than you thought it might actually be in that situation because time was running out. And once again, the Jets did everything they could try to do to lose this game because if not for that late roughing call, then Boswell never gets gets the free 3 points in that situation. So they gave them 3 points in that situation in there, and all because as a result of Cameron Sutton intercepting that pass. What do you think about kind of the play calling overall, especially once Kenny Pickett got into the game?
I have to go back to the all-22 again. I didn't think it was anything egregiously bad. They were still aggressive. They didn't. I mean, when Pickett came out, they did, run, and then fourth down sneak. But beyond that, they opened things up, and it wasn't a completely conservative offense. So I'll have to go through and watch it again. But I didn't feel it was a terribly called game.
Yeah, I didn't, and I didn't think really from top to bottom it was that bad of a called game. No. I think the biggest thing that stuck out in the first half once again was. Like 7 of 13 of Trubisky's throws were more than 16 yards down the field. It's not in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, the penalties put this team in a lot of bad spots in the first half, so that should be recognized. Before I forget, since you mentioned the field goal, man, Chris Boswell is so good. I mean, just 59-yarder, 51-yarder in Pittsburgh, where that just never used to happen. He's just off the charts good.
Right. All right. What else do we have about the game?
Let me try to think here. Anything else? I think that probably covers it pretty good off the top. Where are you at? This team's 1-3, just lost 3 straight. You got the Bills next, then hosting Tampa Bay, and then at Miami, at Philadelphia. I know I wrote the article this morning, and the headline I admit it's probably a little bit strong. I was just doing the whole. Wasn't that Don Meredith, Andy Don Meredith? Turn out the lights, the party's over.
Turn out the lights, the party's over.
I was trying to be a little cute with the headline, but I stressed so much coming into the week before this Jets game how important it was to win that game. My whole path realistically to get Pittsburgh competitive and potentially compete is to be 3-5 before the bye, which meant beating the Jets, which puts you at 2-2. Then you go 1-3 over this next 4-game, pretty difficult stretch. You're 3-5. Try to get some wins out of the bye, get some AFC North opponents. Maybe you get back into this thing. Now this team has to go 2-2 against Buffalo, Tampa Bay, Miami, Philadelphia. You lose to the Jets. I know it's any given Sunday, and this team probably will beat one of these next 4 teams at least, but I don't know how you get 2 wins out of that. I don't know what the hope is for Pittsburgh competing this year. Do you have any more hope than I have?
I felt like I'm feeling now is a little bit too optimistic with the 8-9 prediction.
Same.
I figured, maybe Tomlin be worth a couple of wins in there to get him to that, and they obviously gave one away to the Jets there. Where does that one rank on the Tomlin bad loss list?
It's up there, especially again, not just the mere act of losing it, but to be up 20-10 with 12 minutes left and then lose that game in regulation, no less.
I mean, of these next games that we've talked about really forever here. I mean, really since the season dropped, and then up until recently about how with the starts that Philadelphia and Miami got off to, how all of a sudden. Is that the same schedule that dropped? It looked like a pretty tough slate there when the schedule dropped, and then you get Philadelphia and Miami getting off to the starts that they got. You really start looking at a Jets game and saying, man, that they better get a W in that one. I would think now, based on it, I think it totally depends on how long Tua is sidelined for Miami.
I'm guessing he'll be back by that game.
I mean, I don't. Who knows now?
Who knows? But that's my guess.
But if he's not, then that probably becomes the most winnable one of the 4, right?
I mean, their offense showed some life yesterday, but that defense is still so good. I mean, I think the
Fournette, that power run, they're gonna power run that all over. They're going to look at what kind of the things that Belichick did, and they'll scheme that up their run probably if they don't have the wide receivers back.
I mean, Pittsburgh won't be favored in probably any of those games. So, I mean, that's just. And what did you say? They're 14-point dogs to the Bills to open the week.
Yeah, I mean, consensus betting line at least last night was 14. Buffalo by 14.
They've never been 14-point underdogs ever in the history of Vegas sports betting as far back as PFR at least tracks it. So, I mean, that just kind of tells you where this thing's at. So, again, can they win one of these next 4 games? They probably will. I mean, they'll surprise you. I don't know if they're going to go 1-7, but also they could go 1-7. That's certainly, possible. And, again, to go back to the question of, am I wrong to kind of just throw away any hope I have for the season turning around? Because they were 1-3 last year and they turned it around. But it feels like no Ben, a tougher schedule, no TJ Watt for at least a little bit longer, a defense not playing as good as it was last year in terms of a pass rush pressure package. I'm not seeing the hope. They
would really have to turn it on after the bye week and then get some help with some AFC team. In other words, they would have to, I think, go 9-8 and then slide into a spot there.
But we both agree they got to be at least 3-5 at the bye to really have a chance to climb back into this thing. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so.
So they got to go 2-2 over these next 4 games. Which 2 teams can they beat? Tampa and Miami, I guess.
I think Miami looks different just in the light of since Thursday a little bit. And I guess Tampa, I'm not sure they can keep up scoring with Philadelphia.
Or Buffalo. I know they beat the Bills last year at Buffalo, but I don't like
different.
That odds of happening again.
Without Watt.
Exactly. And just without Ben.
If Watt plays in that Jets game, do they win that?
Yes. Watt gets 4 sacks in that game.
Yeah. I agree with that. Look, I mean, it's tough at this point, and I thought it would be a little bit more of an average year, but once again, I mean, I might have been a little bit too optimistic there. They got to get Watt back. The defense, it's got to get back to kind of the things that we said going into the season. Going to have good defensive play, and going to have to rely on the offense running the football kind of effectively. I think Pickett gives you something to some degree, but I think it's foolish right now as kind of as positive as we painted Pickett. Which we might be wearing two rose-colored of glasses, maybe. But I think we kind of treated Pickett's, second half debut fairly overall there. But all that said, he's going to have, it's reasonable to expect him to have hiccups as he moves forward through the rest of his rookie season, and that's whatever they are. That's fine. I mean, I think he's definitely given you enough, I think, at this point, and with the toothpaste out of the tube at this point, that you go ahead and move forward with him at this point. But I also think it's reasonable to expect that he's going to have some issues as the season progresses. Going to be interesting to see how defensive coordinators start attacking him, and more tape they get on him, and those kind of things there. And it's important not to, at least try not to overreact to a lot of them, because once again, I don't think you know what a quarterback is until he gets a good 20 games under his belt or so. I mean, obviously, some you can tell a lot earlier than others there. So if they are going to make any kind of playoff push at this thing, I would expect it to come after the bye week there, and getting Watt back, getting Casey out there, and just playing really, really, really good defensive football, or at least up to the level that we thought maybe this defense could play at the start of the season.
For all my doom and gloom, the upshot is the AFC North does not seem to be the great division that we thought it might be heading into this year. I mean, with the Ravens blow a lead and the Browns lost to Atlanta, and the Bengals are, have had their bumps this year. So, I mean, it's still, I guess Pittsburgh's technically one game out with some AFC North games to play. Not for a little while, but they still have 4 games left this year. But I just don't see really the path after these next 4 games. But I'm still excited about stuff. I'm still excited to watch Kenny Pickett, to watch George Pickens. I can't wait for TJ Watt to come back. That'll be just great to see him out there again. So I don't want to say there aren't individual specific things I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. There are, but I just don't see how this team yet again tries to climb out of this big hole they've dug themselves.
Well, and it goes back to what I said. I think it's going to have to come in the second half of the season, and I think you're going to need the AFC North to just be average overall. And look, I mean, both you want to talk about missing a golden opportunity on Sunday,
right?
And hindsight, all like that. But the Ravens lost to the Bills, the Browns lost to the to the Falcons there, and then now in week 5 you have the Browns hosting the Chargers. That's not a give me for the Browns. And you have the Ravens and the Bengals the Ravens and the Bengals have to play each other here. So as we stated, you're going to have to at least go, I think, 4-2 in your own division if you're going to make a push. And right now they're 1-1 in their own division. So it's not, I understand why you wrote what you did.
No, I agree that I think if you're going to make that run, it's after the bye. But will you have dug yourself too deep before the bye? If you're 2-6, I mean, you have to go 6-2, whatever the number is, out of the rest of the way for.
And that means winning a lot of division games, like I said.
Yeah, you got to win them all basically. So I just don't see that happen. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll look dumb. Maybe I'll be a freezing cold take guy. And listen, I wrote in the article, again, I know there are things to look at. I'm kind of changing my mindset to embrace the suck, enjoy the little wins you'll get this year, and understand this is a transitional year, the way the Patriots had theirs, and that first year post Tom Brady, they go 7-9, they got off to a 2-5 start. So I see a fair amount of parallels overall, but I'm just kind of accepting that this year is going to be a tough one, and they could turn things around relatively quickly. It could be a lot better by next year. I'm not saying the next 5 years are going to be bad, but this year, less fun.
Look, we just agreed that they've got to probably run. If they lose, they damn near got to run the table in the AFC North the rest of the way. If they lose one game, it can probably be to the Bengals, I'm thinking. If they lose any. Now remember, you got 4 games against the AFC North after the bye week. Let's look at the rest of those games. The Saints, that if you have Watt back and Kenny's got some time underneath his belt, that's a game they might be favored in.
That's at home, right?
That's at home.
Yeah, got a chance.
How big of a juggernaut are the Indianapolis Colts?
They're really terrible. I mean, they're just getting blown out. They're not just losing; they're getting just destroyed.
All right, what about the Falcons?
I mean, we'll see where the quarterback is by then. Could we see Desmond Ridder versus Kenny Pickett potentially? But obviously, that's a game Pittsburgh can be competitive in.
What about the Panthers?
Yeah, hopefully one. I assume Matt Rule will not be the coach by then. One that can be won.
What about the Raiders?
I mean, the Raiders aren't looking too hot this year. So, yeah, again, another game Pittsburgh hopefully will be competitive in.
I mean, you see where I'm going here.
No, I agree. But if you're 2-6, I mean, you're not going to win all those games coming out of the bye. That's my thought was you get to 3-5, and then, if you get hot on the other side when the schedule maybe, quote unquote, lightens up a bit, sure. But if you're 2-6, only one team in history has ever made the playoffs at 2-6, and that was Washington when they won the East at 7-9. I don't think 7-9 is going to do it this year.
At most, you can lose 2 games in the second half of the season, right? And if you're to circle which one in division to lose, which one would it be?
It just depends on what team it looks the worst in the North. Maybe the Browns if they continue to struggle before Watson comes back. I mean, the Bengals, as you said, potentially, but
you might need a division tiebreaker over the Ravens if you're going to.
You don't want to lose the Ravens,
right? So you'd have to beat the Ravens. You already lost once to the Browns. You would have to think that they're going to go into it. It's hard to even imagine at this point, but if you got into week 18 in a must-win game, that one. So that's why I say if you're going to pick one to lose in of the remaining 4 AFC North games to go 4-2 in the division, it would probably be the Cincinnati Bengals game that you would pick. And the rest of the games we just said are, at least where we sit right now, kind of seem like winnable games.
Right. I wonder if this is going to be, 2012 or 2013 all over, where you were 0-4 and you finished the year 8-8. You had a good end of the year, but you just were too far deep to ever really recover from.
Okay. But I mean, I get where you're going with this. And once again, it's not changing my opinion at this point that I might have been a little bit too optimistic at 8-9.
Yeah, I think that never had a losing season stat probably ends this year. Seems to be the way things are going right now. But we'll see. I'm taking it one game at a time. We'll see what Buffalo happens and go from there.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Dave? I think that probably covers it pretty well. We can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let us start with here. Brian Tolini writes in, surely at this point in the show, you guys want to talk about something other than yesterday's game. Just seeing your thoughts on the way delay of game penalties are assessed. There has to be a better way, right? You see it almost every game you watch. The play clock runs out, but the offense gets an extra second or sometimes 2 to snap the ball because of the delay in the back judge checking the clock and then the snap. I mean, I've heard this broken down by the rules officials and all, all like that on the broadcast and all. And I mean, I don't know if there's a better way to do this, quite honestly.
No, I think that's just the way it's been enforced for a while. Everyone understands that. Sometimes you benefit from it. Sometimes you don't. I think the ineligible men downfield, they're certainly cracking down on that. I talked about that last week. You're seeing that one called a lot more this year, although maybe one was missed in the Jets game. Somebody said the Jets had guys downfield, I think, on a low red zone play that I hadn't gone back and checked, but just the way that it's probably going to be.
Let's see here. Larissa writes in, thank you for having the best Steelers show in the world. While this was a much better showing from the Steelers when Kenny came in, it was still blah. Things are just stagnant. I almost wish Kenny would keep throwing long would keep throwing long passes, even if they're interceptions, rather than dink and dunks. At least the game is more exciting and what is going on with the defense. Every single game would give up passes down the middle and don't make adjustments. 3rd and 15, and Zach Wilson makes a crisp pass down the middle and our most on our most expensive defense. Do you think this is because of our scheme or execution? Man, Cam Hayward had a lot to say after the game, didn't he?
He did. So did Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think about his comments where he said, and I'll have to go back to the tape. I want to do a film room on this, but talked about how they were thrown away from the robber, Minkah dropping down to take away crosses and Wilson adjusting, throwing away from him. And Minkah saying that whenever the Jets adapt, whenever the opponent adapts, we have to adapt as well. So kind of a veiled shot there. Listen, Zach Wilson through 3 quarters sucked yesterday. He completed 1/3 of his passes, thrown 2 interceptions. In the 4th quarter, the guy looks like Tom Brady. He goes 10 to 12 for 130 something yards and a touchdown. So how does that change so quickly? It's Pittsburgh really getting out schemed.
Yeah, you have to question that. Look, I didn't view Kenny Pickett as dink and dunking once he got in the game.
Yeah, I don't think that would anything but dink and dunk. He was pushing the ball downfield.
Almost wish Kenny would keep throwing long passes, blah, blah, blah. Look, his average yards per, and it's a very small sample size, but his average intended, his intended air yards and his completion air yardage was just fine. And, for the sample size that it was, once again, and we talked about his play earlier, or, obviously we broke it down quite a bit, and I think we've been fair with it. I mean, there's more positive takeaways than negatives, if you ask me. Nicholas Gooden writes in, well, this sucks. A lot of takeaways from this one, but there are 2 things stuck in my mind. Do we have any update on Calvin Austin? I'm so tired of Chase Claypool due to his crazy measurables, but plays like he's 5'8". Hope Austin can overtake him soon. Provide some explosiveness to this offense. Number 2, he says Dave's Twitter memes are 10 of 10.
What was the first part?
About Calvin Austin and tired of Chase Claypool and all that stuff there.
I mean, hopefully we'll get an update on Austin this week. I mean, he'll be eligible to practice, and I'd like to think he'll be, able to practice. I mean, he got hurt in late July, so I mean, I don't know the exact nature of the injury, but he's never on crutches and walked around fine at the end of training camp. So I'd like to think he'll start getting back, but there's a conditioning element and a work your way up element. So not quite sure when we'll see Austin again, but hopefully, next couple of weeks.
Let's see here from Finn. Finn from Ireland here. Thanks for all your hard work and happy Misery Monday. I called my SHIT in May that we would end up 3-3 entering week 7. See attached. What are both your thoughts on Pickett getting hot, assuming he starts next week? The offense definitely had more spark with Pickett under center. So he wants to let it be known that back on, I guess this is May 13th, he said Steelers would be 3-3 would be a huge outcome, knowing the Steelers, they will beat the Bengals, Bucks, and Bills and still end up 3-3 somehow. We'll see. If this team gets to 3-3, 6 games into the season, probably need to be celebrating something somewhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, that'll be fantastic, but not looking terribly likely. Again, to me, be 3-5 at the bye is where this team needs to be. The question is, can they get there? Of course, it means going 2-2 over these next 4 games.
Matt Smith, could you see a scenario where Omar tries to move Chase Claypool at the deadline? Maybe some contender thinks they can better maximize his ability and they'd have him under contract for 2023. He says with Pickens, it's just hard to see Claypool's role in the Steelers offense going forward, and an extension next summer seems impossible with how few plays he's making. Maybe a rapport can be established with Pickett in the next few weeks, but I'm certainly not counting on it. Okay, I mean, look, fine. You want to trade Chase Claypool? Are you really going to give away? What are you going to give away for a wide receiver that you evidently think has some tiny value and obviously still has 1 year remaining on his rookie contract after this year? You just want to paddle him off for a 5th or a 4th?
Yeah, I don't really see him having a whole lot of value. I think Pittsburgh will. Yeah, Claypool has certainly had his struggles, but you want to have depth, you want to have rotations. Pickens is still certainly seeing a lot of playing time, even with Claypool being out there. So I don't see him being on the move.
Boy, remember all that grief Uncle Dave got when he talked about not being able to find separation as a deep player. Really, the only kind of hat that you had to hang on Claypool coming out of his rookie season were those contested catches, right? And now you can't even get that out of him.
Right. I mean, he lost out to a 5'8" safety. How do you do that?
I mean, I got a lot of hate mail for talking about separation and Chase Claypool and that kind of stuff there. And now people want to give him away for a Cracker Jack prize, sounds like. And I'm not that person. I think they should hold on to him, to be quite honest with you, unless you got a third or something like that. But I will be a bit surprised if they're able to get a third round draft pick for Chase Claypool by the trade deadline there. And I would not separate from him from anything less than that. Would you?
I don't know.
If you got a fourth for him on right ahead of the trade deadline, and this team was definitely out of it, would you take a fourth for him?
Maybe. I really hadn't thought about it much. I don't expect that to happen, but I would consider it.
Andy Busum from North Carolina writes in, hey guys, what do you get? What do you think is going on with Cam Hayward? Is he dealing with an injury? Has he lost strength or a step? Is he getting extra attention from opposing offenses? How is it that he's not showing up at all? I don't think it's the whole father time thing. I just think it's because look, he was pretty good in that week 1 game, right, against the Bengals.
Right. Very good.
And I mean, I think he is a little bit banged up. I think they probably need to make a more concerted effort, maybe to get him off the field and, maybe a little bit more. But now he's got the elbow, he's got the ankle. He is getting a lot of attention over on that side. He's not been jumping off the tape. And I think Alex pointed that out earlier in the show.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of everything. The loss of TJ Watt, his own injuries, facing some decent matchups, and the way teams are scheming him. He's not playing poorly. I think he's playing fine. The hustle is great, and he's still making some plays against the run. But just you have those impact plays. They got to have those impact plays. Somebody has to step up. It can't just be Alex Highsmith. And you're looking for that whenever you lose guys, whenever you're really in a tough situation, you want your stars to elevate their game. It's easier for a star to elevate his game even more than it is for a quote unquote average player to elevate his game. And that's just why I'm setting a really high bar for Cam Hayward, because they know it's possible.
We'll see what happens when TJ comes back and Cam can get past these kind of nicks and bruises associated with playing football. Chandler Stroud writes in, rookie quarterback talk. Sadly, once again, folks, fellas, no victory Monday, but you may or may not have covered this already in the show or even answered the question. Elaborate, break down the conversation if things go from here. This seemed like a very hastily and quite shocking move made by Mike T, but I'd like to offer my piece. Once you move on to that rookie quarterback, if you're a competent organization at all, you stick with the young guy that you've invested in so heavily. That's not even a conversation at this point. You've seen guys over the years, rookies get brought in and kind of fail initially and get pulled and start again, blah, blah, blah. Look at Josh Allen, very lackluster, very first 2 seasons. I think what he's trying to say in so many words, and this is a long email, is that he thinks there's no going back from Kenny Pickett change at this point. And I think you and I, agree with that.
Assuming he's saying the starter for the Bills game, yeah, I think there really is no going back. So my expectation is that assuming that Pickett's the guy for week 5, he'll be the guy the rest of the year.
Nick Shuley, painful loss with Gunner fumbling another punt. Do you guys think there's a chance they let him go since they have Calvin Austin III scheduled to come off IR this week? Also, besides TJ Watt being injured, why do you think this defense struggles so much to get one stop when they need it? Look, Nick, I think we kind of really beat those 2 horses up pretty good during the show.
Yeah, Gunner, again, I think Steven Sims is probably the more immediate threat. And then for the defense, I mean, we talked about that earlier.
Devin Beerly, hi guys. Thanks for all your work going into the seasons. The Steelers seemingly had talent, decent playmakers, elite talent at every defensive level. A deep defensive line and the offensive line has performed better than expected. Where do you guys think the talent is really lacking? He says, I saw Dave's tweet about needing 5 first-round picks. If the Steelers had 5 first-round picks, where would you guys use them? Look, that was frustration in watching the TV tape. But I mean, you do. I think we covered this early in the show as well too. You look at this and what they got right now. It feels like there's a lot of things that are going to have to be addressed after the season, and probably more so than mini season off season. It kind of feels like this team's going to have to spend some money in free agency to get it all covered. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right about that. I mean, I'll just wait for the season to end to see exactly who emerges, who's playing well, who's not, because the landscape still could and probably will look different, in January compared to October 3rd today in terms of what they need, what they don't need. I just think overall, this team's got to find a way to win close games. I know I'm going to harp on the stats so much more, but they're 1-2 in one possession games this year, and really should be 1-3. The Browns touchdown, skewed that at the end. So, I mean, they were 15-4-1, 2020, 2021, and in one possession game. So they got to find ways to close games out, to finish games. That's harder to describe and explain what they need to do that, but that's how they're going to have to win games. They're going to be close. They're going to be low scoring. You got to be able to finish games out. They've not really been able to finish a game out this year.
Wendell writes in, don't know if you guys answered this already on the podcast, but do you believe Tomlin still makes the quarterback change if Deontay's toe is in bounds on what would have been a TD pass? Yeah, look, I mean, it's hard to and it's Wendell up from Rhode Island. Wow. It's hard to say for sure, but it does feel like that might have changed the complexion of the game maybe enough to make Tomlin stick with Trubisky, but who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think maybe Trubisky gets more time. I think it's probably, again, why Trubisky was mad about, obviously he's just upset in general about being benched. No one wants to be benched, but he's probably sitting there going, man, we had so many great chances that we almost hit on. And, that weren't my fault necessarily. So I should have remained the starter in that game. So had they scored there, I think Trubisky probably stays in.
You know what they call almost touchdowns on the back of the end zone?
All those incompletions.
Incompletions. It was a good pass though, and I mean it was a very good catch. It just missed it by that much. So Maxwell Smart. Benjamin McDay, defense. Why are the Steelers losing to not good quarterback teams? I will say this. Zach Wilson played his ass off.
Yeah, he did, but he was terrible for the first 3 quarters.
I
mean, what changed for him to go to terrible to Greek God in the fourth quarter?
And let me tell you, he had a little bit more mobility than what I thought he might have with coming off that rust and that knee injury and him getting away from a couple of those would-be sacks. And man, the sequence on him getting to that damn football on the backwards pass and getting it out of bounds. And right. We forgot to address the Jersey special play too.
Oh, yeah, the Philly, the touchdown is Zach Wilson. I mean, kudos to them. I talked about the Jets being a creative offense. I thought they were pretty well coached, pretty well schemed, just weren't necessarily getting all the pieces to go, and they had injuries and stuff. But I think they out-schemed Pittsburgh yesterday overall.
They did. And Malik, I thought the announcer was right in saying, I thought the announcers overall did a pretty good job in that game, talking about Malik's got to be the one that's got to identify that. The other aspect that he hit on during the TV tape was about those over the middle plays that not only the Jets hit against the Steelers defense, but the Steelers were even able to pop one to not too many plays later on one of those digs to Pickens there. That linebackers got to know the situation specifically, and protect the chains in a couple of those situations instead of biting up and giving the run the respect that they did.
Yeah, the Jets schemed things well to create those throws over the middle. They had some good high-level or high-low concepts to stress the defense and put linebackers in conflict. They did a good job there. They had a probably better game plan. Pittsburgh had no answers for the Jets chipping, which they knew they were going to do. And then even you remember the Michael Carter 1-yard touchdown that got called back on the false start whenever he kind of moved his left foot. Remember that play?
Which one?
In the fourth quarter, the Michael Carter touchdown that was called back on the false start that Carter had.
Yeah.
The Jets, they had subbed from Pony to 12 personnel, so 2 tight ends on the field, and Pittsburgh was still in their nickel defense. That's the second time they've done that on the goal line. Did that in the Patriots game. They allowed a touchdown on that play to Damian Harris. They did that against the Jets yesterday, and it was just thankfully called back on Carter. Why is Pittsburgh in nickel against 12 personnel on the goal line?
Yeah, good question.
Twice this year. I mean, just dumb stuff like that. They're just getting, I don't know, they're getting out schemed on.
All right, we got a flood of these things. Just one more, Alex. Artie writes in, what effect, if any, has Flores had on the perfect time for this email, had on this defense? I think Tomlin wanted to bring Pickett in the second half, not only to give a spark, but specifically to see how Pickett would react coming in off the bench, kind of like a pop quiz to see how much Pickett has been paying attention. I'd say Pickett passed the test. What do you think? I don't think it was a pop quiz type thing. I think like Tom, I believe everything Thomas said. He wanted to see if he could give this offense a spark. I don't look at it as a kind of a pop quiz. I don't think overall, but I mean, I suppose as we talked earlier in the show, had Pickett really played bad, I mean, really bad, then I think the option may be to go back, to Trubisky in this next start. But I don't even view that as being a choice that Mike Tomlin has at this point.
I'm with you. No, it was not a pop quiz. It was they're trying to win a dang game.
Right.
How important it was to beat the Jets to go 2-2 to try to get this year back on track and not drop their third straight game. So that was all the decision was, to just try to get out that stadium with a win.
All right, that should be enough to get us out of here now. We've got some all 22 tape to get to, and everything that kind of goes along with that. A very busy Monday, obviously, for us. So within that, anything else to add, Alex? We obviously will start looking ahead to the Buffalo Bills, try to get a Bills beat writer on Wednesday or Friday to start breaking down that Week 5 game. Looks like Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson's going to call that game for CBS in Buffalo. I wonder if that will be a nationally covered game or not. Probably will be, you would think. But in the meantime, you can follow me. Anything else? Anything else? I didn't give you a chance to answer. Anything else? Yeah,
I did have just one quick stat of the weird. Kenny Pickett, first Steelers quarterback to throw an interception on his first pass attempt since Jim Miller back in 1995. His only pass of that game. That was a win over the Lions, I think it was that day. Mike Tomczak threw a bunch of interceptions that game. Kenny Pickett also the first. Did I mention this earlier? First quarterback to ever have 2 rushing touchdowns in his first game. And Ben Roethlisberger threw a pick on his second pass. So did Mason Rudolph. So Pickett has him beat by 1 and tied with Jim Miller. First quarterback across the league to throw an interception on his first career pass attempt since John Wolford of the Rams, who we talked about earlier this summer. So I don't know if that's considered full circle or not. Nah. That's a stat there.
What about? We've got to mention the sad news about the fan at Acrisure yesterday.
Yeah, I know details are really still pretty light, so I didn't know exactly how best to address that. But apparently after the game, around 4:45 p.m., according to, I think, the Pittsburgh Public Safety Report, there was a man that fell from an escalator and later died from his injuries. So that's obviously really, really tragic news.
Was that, do we know, I haven't read anything more than just, the initial report on that. Is anything more known about that? Hopefully it wasn't, I hope it was just more than I hope it wasn't more than just a misstep or something like that.
No, I don't know any information about what caused the accident or what their ruling is. I think it's still being investigated by Pittsburgh police. So no updates in terms of the actual reason for how that occurred.
Yeah. Man, can you imagine going to a game or family and just so tragic and not come home,
Yeah. Puts it in perspective for sure.
It does. Life is fleeting, as they say, right?
And it's just a game. It sucks the Steelers lost, but it's ultimately just a game.
And that's the thing. Look, we don't know which way this thing's going to go from the Steelers the rest of this way out, but we're going to break down every game as objectively as possible and try to learn at the same time. And look, Alex will speak to this, and I think several of our guys too. We are very blessed to be able to do what we do and be able to do this full time and basically watch football for a living. And I know a lot of you listening will get upset or even more maybe as the season goes on, but it is important to kind of put all this stuff in perspective. And if they do, have more unfortunate games like we saw against the Jets, there's something to look forward to is, try to learn more about the game as this goes on. And that's what we're always trying to do. And we're trying to present our findings out there in film rooms and try to be as objective in speculation about the news and where we see this team going and all like that. So there's a lot of reason to continue to tune into this thing moving forward. So, all right, with that, follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Additionally, if you want a ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. So with that, and until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.